Good afternoon. In my tradition, today is All Souls Day, when we acknowledge all who came before us, our ancestors and generations past, not just the saints, who shaped us through their exemplary lives and our fond memories, but everyday people, victims of war, victims of abuse, victims of themselves. We are shaped by those we love, and also by those who have left behind damage and pain. Today we acknowledge that grief is not an intellectual exercise. We hold far more grief in our bodies than we can talk about in polite conversation. We grieve loved ones, friends, parents, and yes, even children. But friends, we grieve as well those who did not love us as we needed, and those whom we did not love ourselves. We grieve them with our bodies too. Our bodies hold grief without our permission. Our bodies hold this truth about how we became who we are. But I'm thinking, church, maybe you don't want to hear about that. I'm thinking maybe we shy away from the grieving and console those and quiet those who mourn because it's easier. We rush to simple answers because we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to feel it. That's okay. Nobody wants to hear about it. But remember, you are formed not simply by what you wanted to be formed by the experiences you have chosen, but also by the people and experiences you could not choose. Grief is not a choice. It is particularly when we don't want to admit it that it shows up anyway. It shows up as wounds that won't heal. As a lump in our throat or a pit in our stomach, it shows up sometimes as nightmares, as back pain that we can't explain, as chronic dehydration that won't respond to water. It shows up as headaches, as stiffness in the neck. Our bodies require us to process every loss, even the losses we would rather not acknowledge, and our bodies keep score when we don't. Beloved, you may not want to admit this to yourselves, but we are all still grieving the losses we have had to endure. Maybe you think this doesn't apply to you. Maybe you think you're doing just fine. Maybe you think the old losses don't affect you and these words just apply to someone else. That's okay too. You're allowed to think whatever you want to think, but your body knows. Your body remembers. I share some of these experiences of grief with others on the third Thursdays of the month. Our most common experience of grief seems to be that whenever we bring it up in polite conversation or vulnerable, intimate conversation, nobody wants to hear about it. Nobody wants to talk about the ways that we hurt. No one wants to hear about the grief I hold in my body that haunts my life as I try and fail to move on. No one wants to hear about the apartment I must walk around in that is filled with ghosts. For me, when this grief has turned inward, it shows up like an abductor, like a captor. When I least expect her, my grief shows up from behind, puts her hand over my eyes so I can't see those who walk with me. She puts her hand over my mouth so that I cannot breathe or speak. She pulls me back, away from the life I lead, away from those who need me. She separates me from everything in this world, and I'm trapped in darkness, in a fierce tension that lives from my throat all the way down to the pit of my stomach. She lives in my leg cramps, creeps up along my back and over into my shoulders. With her, I forget where I am, I forget what I'm doing, sometimes I forget who I am. Without warning, she releases me slowly, but I'm not free from her burdens. Though my eyes clear and my breathing slows, her tension lingers. The tightness in my belly and back remind me that I am not free from all I must still grieve. It doesn't feel fair that our traumatic experiences, not just our lives, but the traumatic experiences of our parents' lives and the traumatic experiences of our grandparents' lives should still shape and form who we are. It doesn't feel fair that our bodies hold the traumas and grief of those bodies who come before us. It doesn't feel fair that we hold all of this in our bodies as pain and grief. I do not know if we were meant to carry so much grief in our frail bodies. The good news is, dear church, that you don't have to hold it alone. This is our time. This is how we share it. This is where we share it. You are safe here, church, and we are not alone. Where do you feel grief? Where does grief show up for you? Right in front or from behind? What grief do you hold that you did not choose? By sharing it here together in community, by lighting candles, by singing songs, we can heal. We can. But first, we must acknowledge we are in need of healing. We must find that grief. It's there inside of you. You can feel it in your body, whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not. And then, once we have found our grief, we must heal. And we do not have to heal alone. I do not believe we were meant to carry so much grief in one body.